Hello and welcome to the Genetic Wonders podcast. Today we will be answering an interesting user questions about identical twins.
The question is, my brother and I are identical twins and we married identical twin sisters. We learned through high school biology that identical twins are essentially clones. We share exact copies of DNA. My wife and I are expecting our first child as well as my brother and his wife. Since I am the same genetically as my brother, and our wives are also genetically the same, will our children end up being identical twins to each other?
The short answer, no. If two sets of identical twins each had a child, then their children would not be genetically identical because of epigenetic factors, genetic variation, and meiosis. Each of these concepts has a part to play in the varying genomes of all people on Earth, including identical and fraternal twins.
Let's start with epigenetic factors. Identical twins grow more different over time as their environment changes the epigenetic markers on their genome. Epigenetic markers change the expression of a gene. Some of these acquired markers pass on to offspring as imprinted genes. The sets of twins would pass on different epigenetic markers to each of their offspring, which means that the offspring's genomes would be different from each other. Some examples of conditions that can make epigenetic markers are diet, getting a scar, getting a tattoo, and many other environmental effects. Even identical twins are affected by different environmental factors because no people grow up exactly the same.
Next, let's talk about meiosis. Identical twins are born when a fertilized egg splits, meaning that they start out with the same DNA. If the two sets of twins each had a child, their children would not come from the same egg. Therefore, they did not start out with the same DNA. That was copied for meiosis. Their genomes would be different because of this, as they inherited their parents' genes separately and differently.
On to genetic variation, one of the most important parts of genetics and offspring. Genetic variation is what makes each and every one of us unique. The same goes for the children of the twins. The inheritance of alleles from parents is a random process. Even if the DNA is exactly the same between the identical twin fathers and the identical twin mothers, their children might inherit different genes.
This process is demonstrated by Punnett squares. Let's say that the twin sisters are both heterozygous for this trait. They have one big X and one little x. If the twin brothers have two recessive alleles, which are both little x, there are 4 combinations that can happen. As you can see, the children could inherit one big X and one little x, or both little x's. This means they could have different genotypes and possibly different phenotypes as a result.
One example of this is copy number variation. Usually people carry 2 copies of a gene. One copy is from their father and one is from their mother. Not all genes follow this rule, however. This means that the children of the 2 sets of twins could have different amounts of copies of a gene from each other.
In conclusion, the answer to the user's question is no. The children of the 2 sets of twins could not be genetically identical due to the epigenetic factors, genetic variation, and the process of meiosis. This has been the Genetic Wonders podcast, The End.